president of the Asia Institute, Mr. Emanuel Pastreich. Mr. Pastreich, it's a pleasure as always, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and get started off with, of course, the most clearest thing, what we have been hearing from Mr. Abbas Araghchi. Any understanding meant is to seal the battlefield victory. This is one of the main points that he did say. Let's start off with your take in regards to the possibility, as we are seeing from both sides, of a final deal, being signed.
Right. Well, Foreign Minister Araghchi is deeply respected around the world. In Japan here, where he was ambassador, there's enormous respect and expectation for him. I personally fully understand the desire of the people of Iran to seek peace, and the government has pursued international relations, diplomacy, in the most, I think, one of the most systematic and logical ways of any country in the world. So it's my hope for peace. At the same time, I think we have to reckon with the real situation that we face in the case of the United States and Israel. First, can Donald Trump, will he do something? If he promises, will he do it? In terms of his personality, his record, and his own interests, which are so closely tied to Israel, and of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is even less reliable. So there's a big question. But the even larger question would be, could he do it even if he wanted to? That the United States and Israel are increasingly sliding towards a form of anarchy, bordering on civil war. Israel has essentially broken down into warring factions. The United States, the Congress has ceased to function. It's ignored by the executive. Within the Trump administration itself, it's not sure who's making decisions, and a lot of things are being done by private military contractors with a foot in Israel and a foot in Washington, D.C. So it's very, we have to be honest with ourselves. The desire for peace is what we should be striving for. This is very respectable. I have great respect for the people in Iran, and for that matter, colleagues in Pakistan, in China, around the world who have made an effort, in the United States who have made an effort. However, the situation in the United States with Israel is such that it's very doubtful that things will be continued, but we should not give up. We should not give up. Can we imagine the United States, under Donald Trump, or for that matter, the out-of-control Pentagon, assuring Iran that there will be no further attack? Can we imagine the guarantee that agreement, such as this one, will be continued into the future for decades? Can we imagine that any possibility of compensation would be recognized by the United States or Israel? Is it really possible that we could do a two-stage, one easy and then hard the second? Can Donald Trump, fighting the various hidden forces in Washington, D.C. and in Tel Aviv, can he really go back on sanctions?
Yes.
Because it's the attack on Iran is part of a global domination agenda, which began with the war on Gaza, extended into southern Lebanon, Syria, Libya, and Iran is part of that greater effort to essentially destroy civilization, starting with infrastructure, education, ordinary citizens, and I pray for peace, but I think we have to be realistic about the tremendous challenges that the Honorable Foreign Minister Araghchi is facing.
Well, exactly, Mr. Pastreich. The reality is, as clearly as you did mention, of course, we all hope for peace, we all hope for diplomacy, but the reality is history experience has shown it not only for Iran, but for the entire world in regards specifically to the United States, to the Zionist regime, as you did there point out. Since you did bring that up, I have to mention one of Mr. Abbas Araghchi's points yesterday was saying that we never forget Lebanon, this war, and that Lebanon, the regional ceasefire framework, it's included in there. ceasefire. It has to stop fighting, specifically in Lebanon and in regions. Just less than half an hour ago, Yediot Ahronot, a very popular Hebrew media channel, said, from quoting an Israeli source, saying that if Hezbollah attacks the northern settlements, we will attack the southern suburbs of Beirut, and then we'll wait to see Iran's response. And if Iran attacks us, in case we do make that attack, of course, we will retaliate, and we will not accept the unification of of these two fronts. I mean, we already know the situation on the ground, the sabotaging of the Zionist entity. Let's go ahead and do a hypothesis here. Let's say a deal is indeed made. And let's say again that the U.S. Agrees to all these points. We have not been exactly we have not exactly seen the exact 14-point plans, but of course we're assuming according they're very in line with Iran's red line, specifically what we heard from Mr. Abbas Araghchi, specifically Lebanon and other points. The nuclear issue, sanctions will be postponed to the second phase, that it will involve a two-phase negotiation framework, and etc. So let's say that Israel does attack again, as they are saying, and Iran does. Do you see that Iran will retaliate as it has done in the past? And in that case, what is your take on the unification of the fronts of Iran and, of course, Lebanon?
Well, I'm sorry to say that we're drifting more and more to a scenario that resembles the beginning of the First World War, and it will include more and more countries. I wish it wasn't that way, but I think the institutional decay in the United States, and by extension in Israel, and for that matter in Europe, means that there's really nobody in control. And so Donald Trump and his group of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Witkoff, his business associate, totally unqualified, inexperienced, people interested in making money for themselves, are making these incredibly important decisions, and they're doing it only for their own short-term profit. It reminds me, and I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think we have to be honest with ourselves. At the beginning of the First World War, there were numerous efforts in diplomacy to stop the war, including this Christmas peace agreement, right, which lasted for a short period of time. But the contradictions, and this is true now, in which an economy like the United States has essentially become addicted to war, right? It no longer makes anything. It no longer, it's over financialized, speculative. The government itself has been destroyed by Donald Trump and people before him, Obama, Biden, and others. And so in order to stimulate the economy, the only thing people can think of is some form of war, some sort of military action. And so I fear, or I think we have to be realistic, that the way this is going to end is going to have to be some sort of profound transformation of the United States, Europe, and Israel into some sort of a stable economy which is not addicted to war, which is not authoritarian, that is at some degree democratic, participatory, and respects the citizen. And I think that in some way, Iran's role, and this conversation is part of that, is to say, not only does Iran have to engage in sophisticated diplomacy, which it is, it has to also propose a new world order, a new peaceful sort of regime, system for the world, because the United States is totally incapable of doing that.
Well, Mr. Pastreich, allow me to come back to you momentarily. Mr. Pastreich, let me go ahead and cross back over to you. It's very interesting because this point continues to be brought up. And there's been a lot of analysts and experts talking about this, that even the American people there, the citizens, are actually believing the Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters, or the IRGC's statements, of course, when they come out, more than their own statements by U.S. President Donald Trump, or more than Pete Hegseth, or more than Marco Rubio. They're believing the enemy more than they're believing their own officials, basically. And this is not the first time we've seen this. We've even seen it so many times throughout history. One of the most recent times, of course, within the last few years, in Lebanon. We saw when martyred Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah had come out saying that the settlers in the northern parts will not be returning because we're going to be carrying it out. we welcome you to come into the country because that way you are closer, and then we can hunt you in a better way, basically. And the settlers there had said that we're actually listening to his statements more than we're listening to Netanyahu, than Ben-Gvir, and we're believing them more. To what extent? Because we know that the Zionist media propaganda has been not just in the Zionist entity we're talking about, not just in the U.S., but it's had this hold on world media propaganda. No one's going to cover that up. What would you say when some analysts are saying that this propaganda is actually itself in decline?
Right. Well, it's definitely in decline. The United States-centered global financial system is in decline. The problem is, there are two problems. Decline, I would say it goes beyond decline. It's looking very similar to the Roman Empire under Caligula and Nero, or for that matter, the Soviet Union in 1989, 1990. So we could see a very rapid, not only decline, but collapse. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have peace, right? It could, as the authority of the government declines, as the authority of newspapers let's talk about the United States first, becomes more and more questionable, as the whole economic and social system starts to come apart. This often leads to an increase in the power of the military and those with authority, right, to use deadly force. So although the average citizen in America clearly is aware that something's very wrong, many of them don't believe any of the newspaper media they're getting, including the so-called alternative media, which also is lying about many things. Even the truth tellers are lying about many things about Iran and about this war. However, that doesn't rule out the possibility that the United States will move towards an increasingly authoritarian military dictatorship. In fact, I would say that's the most likely scenario. So we should brace ourselves. We should obviously do, citizens of the world, the honorable people of Iran should do their best for peace, for diplomacy, for transparency, for a culture, civilization, not barbarism. This is praiseworthy. But we should also be aware that as this American-based system, of which Israel is a large piece, Israel plays the bad cop, right? The good cop and the bad cop. As that system decays, it will become more dangerous, not less dangerous. Although, if you go out 20, 30 years, of course, maybe America will return to being a normal country. That's all of our wishes. But we should certainly be prepared for conflicts within the United States, and this is also related to the status of Iran. That Iran previously had worked with the United States for all the flaws of the government under the Shah, and that the American strategic planners are watching Iran. My guess is that some of them are seeing how logical, how transparent, how reliable Iran is, and they're starting to have doubts about this relationship with Israel as a result. However, Israel is part of this industrial, technological, finance capital, secret, sort of hidden empire.
Yes.
And it will not go down easily. It will not just say, "Oh, we give up," right? I think the Netanyahu, the billionaire around him, the IT companies like Palantir, Google, Meta, that are Alphabet, who are bought into this, they don't see it as Israel's about to collapse, right? They see it as they will use this IT-based, finance-based system to take over the whole world.
Well, exactly.
That's
Mr. Pastreich, I do highly apologize. Unfortunately, our time has run out and definitely needs a whole program to go ahead and continue this very important conversation. But for now, I'd like to thank both of my guests for joining us during this segment of our ongoing rolling coverage. They're joining us from Tokyo, President of the Asia Institute, Mr. Emanuel Pastreich. A pleasure as always, sir.